A special treat for you. Part of the Texas Book Festival. He was half of the Lehrer NewsHour team on PBS, now called simply the NewsHour, on which Jim Lehrer is the executive editor and anchor. He's also written several books. The latest is called Tension City, and now he is here in our studio with us this morning to talk all about the book. We are so glad to have him here, and it is early, so we are so thankful you decided to get up and come in the studio this morning.
Delighted to do it.
Yes, well, you're appearing at the Texas Book Festival today at 11:15, so let's talk about the book, Tension City. You have been a longtime moderator of presidential debates. You have chronicled it all in your book, so talk about your best chapter in the book.
Well, the best chapter is probably the first chapter, which lays out why it's called Tension City. The title comes from the fact that George H.W. I had the privilege not only of moderating 11 presidential debates, but also of talking to just about all of the candidates, presidential and vice presidential candidates, about their debate experiences over a period of 20 years.
Yeah.
And George H.W. Bush, when I asked him what they were like, he said, "Oh my God, those high visibility events, they were Tension City, Jim," and so that's where the title comes from.
Yeah.
And it's what I have in the book are my experiences in those 11 debates. But as I say, more importantly, what you know, there were several major things have happened in these presidential debates.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, George H.W. Bush looked at his watch in one debate, remember? And
yeah.
And everybody said, "Oh my God, he's disconnected," and all that sort of stuff, and it was used against him. There was a famous Bernie Shaw question of Michael Dukakis. If Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you be in favor of the death penalty?
Yeah.
A lot of things like that, and sighing and grimacing by Al Gore in the debate with George W. Bush. All that stuff is in there, and all of that, excuse me, all of that stuff, sometimes when it doesn't have to do with substance, excuse me, kind of, whoops.
It's early.
It's early. It's early. Can affect the outcome of an election.
Yeah.
And that's what I write about.
Well, and more specifically, perception, I think. Depending on those particular actions, perception of the American people, like looking at his watch, and just the answers that they give have been really interesting too. What has been the most interesting answer you have remembered through all the presidential debates from the candidates?
Well, probably the most interesting is one that was not a debate that I moderated, but it was between Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter, when Gerald Ford said the Soviet Union did not dominate Eastern Europe, and that was in 1976.
Yeah.
And clearly that was not the case. And the reporter who was asked, was one of the panelists, asked, "What are you saying here?" And he repeated it, and it may have cost him the election. There's no question about it, because he was supposed to be the guy who knew foreign affairs, and Jimmy Carter was just a governor of Georgia. He wasn't supposed to know anything about foreign policy, and it was Ford, who had been vice president, been a member of Congress for a long time. So that hurt him terribly. And there have been the one famous one-liners when Lloyd Bentsen said to Dan Quayle in the vice presidential debate, when Quayle made a statement that I had just as much experience as John F. Kennedy did when he became president, and Benson said, "I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was my friend, and you're no Jack Kennedy, Senator." That's a memorable line. It's remembered to this day.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, what was so fun for me, and what makes it interesting for me, is that each one of those cases, I talked to Quayle about that. I talked to Gerald Ford about that, and I talked to Jimmy Carter. In other words, after the fact, and how they felt about what their answers were and what the other guy had done and all that. It's kind of behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah. Well, we just finished a round of presidential debates for the Republican nomination. Yeah. Governor Rick Perry has not done very well, and everyone was hopeful that this last debate that he would pull up his numbers, hopefully. So what's your observation of the debates, the most recent debate and then the other previous debates?
Well, if anybody ever had any question about how important these debates are, not just the nationally televised ones for in the fall between the nominees, these primary debates are extremely important. And what the purpose is to, in fact, weed out the field.
Right.
And remember, Rick Perry came into the race. Just the day he came into the race, he was the front runner.
Yeah.
Then he was in the first debate and he went down. Then he was in the second debate and he went further down. Then the third debate,
even further.
And, so those debates matter. And whether or not those debates have Perry's performance in those debates have ruled him out as a as a serious contender for the Republican nomination, only time will tell. But there's no question it's had a huge impact.
Yeah. Well, I think your book is very timely, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Right on.
Tension City, and Jim Lehrer will be at the Capitol today at 11:15 if you'd like to see him, and maybe he can even sign your book. Of course, buy the book. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, buy it. That's the important thing.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Thank you so much for being here. Straight ahead on